In the next scene, we see that Taekyung is increasingly being included in the protagonist's family, as the members have now added him to a social network chat group, which does not include Yeondu since, according to her mother, she doesn't like her phone constantly buzzing. Meanwhile, the protagonist was raiding the Gong family's fridge. Her pregnancy hunger was so intense that Yeondu couldn't hold back. As she woke up in the middle of the night, she was startled to find the woman in the dark. But it doesn't stop there. As always, Madamoon criticized Yeondu for eating the food she made for her biological grandchildren, which resulted in the protagonist ending up on the floor, all dirty, as the container holding the food was knocked over during the commotion. Although everyone was awakened by this uproar, Madamoon's grandchildren couldn't side with her, and the lady began to feel she was losing her power to control the family. Back at the annex, Yeondu ended up with a hurt calf due to the fall, and as she continued to have pregnancy cravings, Taekyung went out in the middle of the night to get a good amount of food for her. The next day, we see Ji Myung going to the clinic with her ex-husband, and there, when Dr. Cha performed an ultrasound on her, they both got emotional. Later, while having coffee together, the nurse mentioned that Soo-jong had been at the clinic the other day, and that's when Hyun-woo realized who might have spread the news about the divorce to the family. Thus, he arranged with his ex-wife to apologize once more to Yeondu for blaming her. Later, we see Se-jin going to the annex again, but now with the excuse that she must have left a pair of earrings there while arranging it for her to live in. And as if it wasn't enough for Yeondu to let the woman in to search, Se-jin also asked for a cup of tea. During the conversation, Se-jin was the same snake as always, insinuating that things weren't over between her and Taekyung. She also expressed jealousy over the way In-ok treated Yeondu, especially after hearing the lady invite her to dinner the next day to celebrate the protagonist's belated birthday. Se-jin tried her best to extract information from Yeondu, but as always, the protagonist only said what was necessary, and soon the snake left. As soon as Taekyung arrives, he notices Yeondu is downcast, so to please her, he tried to prepare a meal for her. However, since he isn't used to cooking, the food wasn't very edible. This led to the protagonist, already intrigued by what Se-jin had said, arguing with the doctor for the mess he made in the kitchen that had just been cleaned, causing Taekyung to drop everything he was doing, close his face, and go drink alone. Later, we see Hyun-woo going to the annex to apologize to Yeondu again, and since she was alone, the man decided to call Taekyung. At that moment, as Taekyung was drunk, he ended up saying more than he should have, and the protagonist overheard, meaning things will get worse than they already were. Even so, Dr. Cha tried to calm her down, and as soon as he left the residence, he ran into Taekyung in the yard, giving him the opportunity to advise the man to apologize and treat his wife better. The next day, Dong-wook has a job interview, and to his surprise, while waiting at a cafe, Yoo Myung appeared. To stop the man from calling her a stalker, the girl showed him a photo of her ex-boyfriend, and now Dong-wook realized they really do look alike. Later, we see him in his interview, but knowing there's someone identical to him walking around the world made Dong-wook's mind wander, which hindered him a bit when answering questions. And later, it is shown how small the world really is, as the woman who interviewed Dong-wook is a friend of Yoo Myung, and the girl was there to meet her at the cafe after the candidates finished. In the next scene, we see a bit before the protagonist's birthday dinner. First, we go through Madamoon's drama, who pretends to be sick to avoid participating, and then we move on to a conversation between Chonsik and his beloved, where he mentions trying to call Se-jin. Since she didn't answer, the man believes she is already on the plane, which is good for both families. But in the end, Madamoon ended up eating at the table with the family because In-ok went to see her after hearing loud music coming from her room and found her crying. Now with everyone at the table, Chonsik and his beloved present the protagonist with a beautiful pair of rings for the new couple in the family to wear. And as we know, every time there's a good moment in a drama, disaster soon follows. Her name is Se-jin, who showed up at the house just to ruin the celebration and announce that she is no longer going to the United States. The woman even put on a drama, saying she made this decision because her parents are about to divorce, and she even shed fake tears, which led to her and Madamoon having a private conversation. Sejin convinced the lady that in 3 months the protagonist would leave Taekyung and that the woman was plotting something against him. So, with Madamoon's blessing, Sejin promised to make everything go back to normal, starting with her returning as the family's secretary. This obviously made In-ok anxious thinking about the protagonist and Taekyung, so she asked her husband to do something, especially after all the lies and actions Sejin took. In-ok told Chansik a bit without going into detail, but hopefully, it's enough for him to see the snake that the woman is. Later, while they were at the annex and Taekyung went to shower, the man's phone started buzzing non-stop, and it was at this moment that the protagonist discovered he was in a chat room with his family. Yeondu quickly went to her room and called her mother because her brothers started crossing the line by asking Taekyung to get him a job, and she asked the lady to remove everyone from the group but not to tell the doctor anything. Meanwhile, Sejin went too far with her parents. As soon as the woman returned home, she made a proposal to her mother. If the lady divorced her father, Sejin would give her the money to pay off the debt, but if she chose to stay with the man, Sejin would withdraw from her life. As soon as the woman finished speaking, Jang Ho couldn't contain himself and slapped his daughter's face, worsening the situation. Subsequently, Sejin went to the couple's room and started taking her father's clothes out of the wardrobe, asking him to leave, thus clearing her path to pursue and reclaim her place in the Gong family. Even though Jang Ho tried to explain to her that if Sejin gave more money to her mother, the lady would incur more debts, the woman didn't want to listen and only blamed him for the family's current situation. It seems the mother will follow in Sejin's footsteps because after the woman went to her room, the lady went to her to make sure Sejin would really give her the money if she got a divorce. The next day, Ji Myung is surprised to encounter an old acquaintance in the company's elevator. His name is Sang-hoon, and when the man discovers she is still married, as the couple hasn't announced it, he seems saddened by the news. Shortly after, the woman learns that Sang-hoon will be the new senior manager of the sales team. Meanwhile, at the clinic, Sejin and her mother went there under the pretense that the lady needed to undergo some tests due to the onset of menopause, and they also took the opportunity to apologize for their recent actions. For the first time in a while, Sejin seemed to be starting to change, but I don't believe her act, and I hope Taekyung doesn't either. Later, we see the doctor heading to the opening of the protagonist's family's restaurant, and on the way, he helped some ladies find the place as they were lost. Since they didn't know who Taekyung was, they started gossiping among themselves that Bang Nim doesn't seem to like her son-in-law much, as she never bragged about him. That said, when everyone arrived at the location and discovered that the doctor is Bang Nim's son-in-law, they were shocked and asked him not to tell the protagonist's mother. The opening was a success and full of customers, but the funny part was that Taekyung made an effort to win over his mother-in-law. He offered to work in her place and did so much that he was exhausted by the end. After the restaurant closed, Bang Nim thanked her son-in-law for his help, and it was then that he learned that everyone left the chat room at the protagonist's request, not because they were angry with him, as he had thought. It was good for Taekyung to clear things up, allowing him to realize he is very much loved by this family. Later, when Taekyung got home, he discovered from the driver that the protagonist had gone out. The scene then cuts to Yeondu at a restaurant. She decides to leave after her mother tells her about the doctor's efforts throughout the afternoon at the opening. As she steps outside, she encounters the top figure from the institution where she used to lecture. The man is as rude as ever and belittles Yeondu, even speaking ill of the baby, but the woman doesn't let it slide and responds to him. The man only stops putting her down when Taekyung appears, and at that moment, the doctor was the best of all. Taekyung handed over his business card and told the man to contact him if he ever thought of speaking to his wife again, as from now on, he shouldn't even get close to the protagonist. Since the man despises single mothers so much, he should know that the doctor's mother was one, and yet Taekyung turned out much better than this lecturer. The next day, Madam Moon insists on the idea that Se-jin should be rehired as a secretary, and to avoid further controversy, she decides to confront Yeon-do, questioning whether everyone is against the idea because of her. Well, the protagonist doesn't let the lady intimidate her and explains that although she hasn't expressed any opinion on the matter, Yeon-do doesn't feel comfortable having Se-jin around. At this point, Chonsik tells his mother that the best thing she can do is back off. Meanwhile, Se-jin's mother followed her daughter's plan and brought Jang Ho his clothes along with the divorce papers. Since all this happened at the school, Bang Nim overheard it by chance and was shocked by the news, but it explains why the man has been so downcast in recent days. In the next scene, we see the protagonist talking to Jang Ho about accepting the offer to work at his school. However, when Yeon-do steps out to take a call from her mother, she ends up feeling unwell and faints. Fortunately, the man was nearby to help her, but as Se-jin arrived at the establishment at that moment, the snake asked her father to help put the protagonist in her car instead of calling an ambulance, promising to take her to the hospital. I was even surprised to see that Se-jin actually did as she promised Jang Ho. However, I was soon disappointed again because the woman called Taekyung and told a completely different story. Se-jin claimed that she prevented Yeon-do from getting hurt and saved her life, repeating the same story when the protagonist woke up, taking advantage of Yeon-do not remembering what happened. Back to Jang Ho, Chonsik was at the man's school to have a conversation with him, and during it, Jang Ho discovered Se-jin's plan about his divorce and the drama his daughter is creating for the Gong family. But to avoid disrupting her plans, the man remains silent about the truth. Later, we see Jang Ho in the school infirmary, and with Bang Nim's help, he applied medicine to his back to help with the pain from the fall he suffered while helping Yeon-do. At that moment, Se-jin called to say that everything was fine with the protagonist, but she didn't expect to be confronted by her father, who said he had discovered her plan. As the woman is blinded by her desire to get what she wants, Se-jin told the man to proceed with the divorce because he had lost the title of father to her. Back at the hospital, Se-jin further exploited her role as a heroine by pretending to have shoulder pain. Thus, Madam Moon, who went there with In-ok, asked Taekyung to take the woman back, and since she supposedly saved his wife, the man agreed. However, upon arriving at Se-jin's residence, her mother dragged him into dinner, and I don't know why the man stayed instead of leaving. Meanwhile, Yeon-do decided to tell Madam Moon that it's okay for Se-jin to return as the secretary, and now everything is starting to go according to the woman's plan. However, since things are going well for Se-jin, In-ok decided that everything should be resolved for her son as well, so she arranged for the new couple to start having meals with the Gong family. The next day, we see Se-jin talking to Madam Moon when Soo-jong suddenly enters. Do you remember when Taekyung's sister-in-law was at the annex and saw those messages from Jun-ha on the protagonist's phone? Well, it took her a while to speak up, but that day has come, and now everything Se-jin and the lady wanted was being served on a silver platter for them. Thus, since Se-jin couldn't extract anything from Yeon-do, later Madam Moon called the protagonist for a conversation. And being quick-witted, Yeon-do understood what it was about and was very open about the matter, even handing over her phone for the lady to take a look. But things get interesting at the dinner table when Madam Moon throws some indirect comments at the couple about marrying a woman who has another man's baby. As expected, Yeon-do doesn't let it slide. She joins in the ladies' game and even questions Soo-jong in front of everyone if she had mentioned the messages she received the other day from her ex-boyfriend. The next day, one of the lies the couple had to tell to escape the traps Madam Moon set for them spread through the clinic. It turns out Yeon-do said that Taekyung has that syndrome where the man feels the same things as the pregnant woman, like becoming more emotional and nauseous. Thus, when Se-jin took her mother for a consultation with Dr. Cha, she invited Taekyung for a meal, and as he was very hungry from having to pretend at home that he had no appetite, he ended up accepting. Meanwhile, Bang Nim went to the Gong family home at In-ok's invitation, and there, while alone with Madam Moon, she realized the lady couldn't read. But to prevent Bang Nim from telling others about this, Madam Un lunged at Bang Nim and silenced her. This was a surprise when Yundu and Inoke arrived at the room and witnessed the scene. However, the ladies agreed to ask to be left alone, and Madam Un even wanted to pay Bang Nim not to reveal her secret to others so she wouldn't be humiliated. But at this moment, we realize where Yundu got her manners from, as Bang Nim refused any payment and said it wasn't something to be ashamed of. What did you think of these episodes? I hope you enjoyed the summary. Leave your suggestions in the comments and subscribe. If you liked the video, like and share it to help me out. Until next time.